So because it falls, the glacier breaks off from a bigger piece, and that's
or it collapses. You hollow out a cavern, like the limestone here in South Florida. Occasionally you get sinkholes which collapse. Well, it's the same sort of thing, but on a much bigger scale because the ice is maybe a mile thick. And so when that chunk of ice, which is a mile thick, collapses and strikes bedrock, it's like that coal mine out west that they removed too many columns from and it began to pancake. It's that kind of thing.
So what effect does that have, what you've seen and what's happening in Greenland and Antarctica? How does that translate to Coral Gables?
Well, it translates to Coral Gables because sea level will rise globally. It doesn't just rise in the Arctic. The water flows downhill, as we all know, so if sea level rises in the Arctic, it's just a very short amount of time before that sea level rise spreads to lower latitudes. So the sea level rises in the tropics because of melting that's going on in the Arctic. And there's a second process. This umbrella has a polar projection where that's the North Pole, there is Greenland. And this is a photograph from some time ago, and it shows pretty much the whole Arctic Ocean covered with pack ice. The Arctic Ocean, the North Pole is in the middle of the Arctic Ocean, and so if there is a Santa Claus, he lives on pack ice. So if you believe in Santa Claus, as that pack ice melts, Santa Claus is going to be in trouble. He's going to have to find some other place to put his workshop. And this whole area around the edges of this is retreating. It is now possible to take a ship up through the Davis Straits between Greenland and Canada and go through the Northwest Passage and come out through Alaska.
Where that was not possible before.
It was not possible before. You can sign up for a cruise on a German cruise ship and go through the Northwest Passage, which was unpassable. Hundreds of people lost their lives in trying to attempt to go through that passage. It was like the holy grail of old Arctic oceanography.
We rode, we had a tour of the waterways recently, and it was a great tour because it took us through the canals of Coral Gables. But it was more than just a tour of, the famous houses or anything like that. You were on the tour as well,
right.
and it was more of an educational tour where we had professors from the University of Miami talking to us about the elutic limestone that was there.
Sure.
You also spoke a lot about the environment and the effects that we're having, the sea level rise. Do you think that tours like that, educational components like that, are important to get the word out and just to raise awareness of the issue?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the thing that's interesting about that Gables Waterway tour is all the limestone that we saw on the edges of the canal that was excavated by George Merrick and his associates showed layer by layer of limestone that was deposited when this area was underwater the last time. So 125,000 years ago, sea level was over 20 feet higher than it is today. And so all of this South Florida up to the north shore of Lake Okeechobee was underwater, under seawater at that time. So this would have been like the Bahama Banks. If you visit those today, there's a fringe of little islands around the edges, and then these large expanses of shallow water on the banks. So that is what the future holds for South Florida if we don't very soon begin to rein in our appetite for fossil fuels. So we are now pumping far more CO2 in the atmosphere than is prudent. I mean, the average European uses half the electricity that the average American uses. And so the Europeans are not living in caves. They have a pretty nice lifestyle. There is absolutely no reason why the Americans couldn't cut their CO2 in half, and they wouldn't even have to change their lifestyle all that much. They just have to stop wasting the vast amount of energy we do. We have giant cars and trucks and SUVs, and we burn vast amounts of petroleum, and that's not good for our planet. There's no reason we can't cut that in half. While we are increasing our CAFE standards to 35 miles a gallon, the present European CAFE standards are 50 miles a gallon. So who do you think is going to import American cars? It's not going to be the people in Europe. It's not going to be the people in China very much, because they have higher gas standards, mileage standards than we do.
And lastly, you were also saying how photovoltaic cells, I mean, they're everywhere in Germany, right?
Yeah.
And how we can sort of do that here as well.
Yeah, we could do the same thing. Germany does have a Green Party, and they have some very enlightened leadership in that Green Party. So it's a very good thing to link up to. And with a 10-year program, it allows capitalists to make plans, to build factories. The price of PV has gone down 5% a year over the last 15 years. That's a huge reduction in price. And the solar economy has grown 40% a year for the last 15 years. So there's a tremendous growth in the solar industry. It generates jobs in the manufacturing sector for the solar cells and for the installations. And so it ends up that the bankers like it because there's a source of money to pay the loan back.
Right.
They're making money. The people who make solar cells like it because they've got a big market. The customers like it because they're making money and they're preparing for their retirement.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a
farmers
win-win
and taxi
situation.
cab drivers and everybody in Germany is putting PV on their roof, even though they have half or a third of the sunlight we have in South Florida. So people will tell you, oh, we can't afford solar cells in South Florida. I would say we can't afford not to have solar cells in South Florida. We should be manufacturing and we should allow our economy to grow.
Yeah. Well, Professor, thank you so much for coming and for sharing some really enlightening information with us, and hopefully people will take notice and realize how important this issue is and that we need to do something about it now. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and thank you. We need to talk about this. It is a problem, and we better get busy doing something about it.
Thank you. And Coral Gables Now is just getting started. Still to come.
I'm Leanne Morejon. Hear one woman's amazing story as Coral Gables joins the rest of the nation to honor victims of crime. That story's coming up on Coral Gables Now.
Plus, a financial expert tells you where not to invest your money. And many Coral Gables residents are advocates for abused and neglected children. We'll tell you about a program that's changing lives. We'll be right back.